Welcome to Black Angus Reviews. Today, I'd like to discuss something near and dear to me. No, not The Last Jedi. That's a fucking Frankenstein's monster. No, today I want to talk about objectivity. It's something that's really bothered me since The Last Jedi. A perfect example to me is Chris Stuckman. For a better synopsis of this point, my friend Anomaly Inc. has a great video linked below. After The Force Awakens, I started following Stuckman for his criticism. I felt I trusted his opinion concerning sci-fi, action, horror, and indie film, and would rely on his assessment to know whether I'd want to spend my money in the theater. This wasn't just because he had points I agreed with, but there's a sense of objectivity in his reviews, even if I might subjectively disagree about the enjoyability of a highly flawed film. I vehemently disagreed with him about the prequels, but totally understand the objective criticism, the apparent overuse of CGI, the pacing, the acting, etc. If you don't think pacing is key to retention and enjoyability, rewatch The Force Awakens. The only pause the story has is at the cantina, a short rest point for the viewer. But then comes the masterpiece by Bryan Johnson, and the same thing Stuckman would pan the prequels for, he ignores for The Last Jedi, giving it a solid A. Of course, half of his review is focused on the cinematography, while he says 50 Shades of Grey is beautifully shot shit. This is just one case reflecting the problem we, the fans, have. Overall, critics love this film. It currently has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and given the critical and fan reception of The Force Awakens, there was a feeling of trust that was built going into Episode 8 that we now feel was betrayed. Maybe purposely misleading, and quite possibly downright shilling for the good graces of Disney, with the intent of future exclusive coverage. At face value, this sounds like an Alex Jones gay bomb conspiracy, I know, but hear me out.
You think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby.
A legitimate complaint I have with film criticism concerning The Last Jedi is that most channels praising it seem to have abandoned all the objective critical tools they used on previous films in their reviews that built their fan base. No matter how much a reviewer likes or hates a film, I reasonably expect criticism on a technical level concerning the craftsmanship, script soundness, acting, and so on. Two great examples for discussion are A Quiet Place and The Witch. I love both films. A Quiet Place is an emotionally rich experience, aided by both being directed by and starring Jim from The Office. But on analysis, the story falls apart, while The Witch, a well-crafted, well-directed, and well-written film, is widely felt to be boring. Both receptions can, to a degree, be examined objectively. While A Quiet Place has a gaping plot hole of having a waterfall that protects the characters from noise-sensitive aliens, and the characters never think to live here, we can still easily root for them because the father is the strong, caring provider and protector, trying to help his daughter here and create a safe home for his newborn and his family. Building a family is worth the risk in this dangerous world, and the setup satisfies very primal qualities we value in people and in storytelling. With The Witch, there was a build-up as the director won Best Director at the Sundance Film Festival, and the trailers gave us a narrative of a witch abducting a baby in an isolated forest, while the remaining family has limited weaponry. It was also marketed with Stephen King saying it terrified him. What you got was a Puritan version of The Shining with very little action and a vague and seemingly abstract ending that alienated those who watched. Moviegoers were overall disappointed despite the sound script based on 4 years of historical research by the director. With these examples, I'm showing that moviegoers aren't hard to please if there's plot holes. Most are aware that tight stories like A New Hope, Die Hard, and The Predator are very rare gems in both execution and sound writing. But because it seems 50% if not more hate, despise, and loathe The Last Jedi, arbitrary defenses have come up. This is a movie about space wizards intended for children, is one that comes to mind. What does the fantasy element of a movie matter with criticism? Lord of the Rings won 17 Oscars out of 30 total nominations, including a Best Picture for Return of the King. Every Harry Potter film is certified fresh, and they are literally about child wizards. And do you know the runner-up to Silence of the Lambs for Best Picture? Beauty and the Beast. Shrek, WALL-E, How to Train Your Dragon, all critically acclaimed. Next excuse. Star Wars was made to sell toys to kids. Kind of the same, but I'll treat it as a different argument. Transformers and He-Man were literally made to sell toys, and besides Bumblebee, all Transformers are rated 57% or less on Rotten Tomatoes. I never heard people in criticism overlook these films or give them a pass because they were toy cell generators. Secondly, saying that Lucas only wanted to sell toys is completely ludicrous. Lucas made art. He put his career on the line to make this passion project, a story that initially had 12 parts planned. The historic toy deal Lucas landed was due to the ineptitude of Fox Studios and was arranged after Lucas had already created the Star Wars. To compare, let's look at Frank L. Baum. He wrote 14 Oz novels, all with the explicit intention of making money, but aside from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, who knows any of his work? The only reason you do is because a beautiful movie was made from it in 1939, that to this day hasn't been outdone, even by Michael Jackson. People want to own great pieces of art, and Star Wars is no exception, despite most pieces available of Star Wars are children's toys. And even if Star Wars was made just to sell toys, how's that working out now? Explain the dying toy market while Marvel is thriving. The quality of the art these items represent is directly responsible. Glad I could squash that one. Another accusation that gets levied on the anti-Last Jedi community is that we are racist, misogynist, and bigots. Where was the outcry when Suicide Squad critically failed? Brie Larson didn't say, "I don't need to know what white men thought of Suicide Squad." There was no #Suicide Squad challenge to bus inner-city kids to see a film with Will Smith and Margot Robbie as leads, and Viola Davis as a well-acted villain. No one shields it from criticism despite its buzzword, diverse cast of a black male lead, 2 white female leads, a black female lead, a Latino lead, and a secondary Asian female character. Why are critics cowering to Disney and this film? That I can't quite answer, but I, along with well-established channels, assume it's for the perks of exclusive access to boost their standings. Honestly, I feel it's a reasonable theory given how critical people like Patrick Willems, Stuckman, Just Right, John Campea, and others give The Last Jedi a pass or overwhelming praise when other films as flawed are panned. Something I hope you pay attention to from here on out is if a movie reviewer or critic spends an overabundance of time discussing how the film was shot, the cinematography, or how beautiful it looks. These qualities are to be noted, as they aid in the enjoyability and can reflect quality. Just look at the long shots of John Wick fight sequences. But regardless of how well a film is shot, that won't cover up large flaws overall. With The Last Jedi, there seems to be a focus on visuals over substance in its criticism that other critiques would point out as a significant flaw. This leads me to how art is, to a degree, objective. Directors use various objective techniques to elicit a subjective response. I pointed this out in a different context in my Why Film Matters video, linked below. The Russian film school perfected montage, and Alfred Hitchcock later explained it in rather simple terms. It's editing. A scene alone many times can mean nothing unless juxtaposed to another. Hitchcock showed this with a repeated shot of an old man looking at something, which turns out to be a mother and child, then cuts back to the old man smiling. The intended response is, "Aw, a kind old man." Keep the shot of the old man, but replace the center shot with mother and child with instead a bikini-clad model. The intended response is that he's a dirty old man. Montage is done on a larger scale throughout movies to progress a story. To get a payoff, we need a build-up. Think if instead of going from securing passage on the Millennium Falcon, instead of transitioning to the hangar bay, we cut to Luke shooting the Death Star and Vader spiraling away in his damaged ship. How did we get here? How'd Luke get his ship? Where's Obi-Wan? Color is also an objective tool used to try and elicit an emotional response. Would Vader be as intimidating if he were gray? Or better yet, brown? No. What if the Empire was purple or yellow instead of the sterile moonlight gray? It's not just how a character is dressed or the color of their environment, but how you light a scene, or how you saturate a scene with one color and have a contrasting one stand out. Many scenes of Tron Legacy rely on an overwhelming amount of black and blue with neon contrasting to direct the eye's focus. Red garners a lot of attention and is used to accentuate passion, whether it be love and lust, hate and aggression, or even power. Have you ever had someone point out how the music affects how you receive a scene emotionally, or better yet, how it tells you how to feel?
Yeah. And I'll tell you why it was there, Jay, although you know the answer. It was to tell you how you should feel.
Yeah.
Aside from Star Wars, The best example that comes to mind is Halloween, with the music adding to the tension. The Witch is great as well, with its unnerving soundtrack that altogether builds a sense of dread and unease to say the least. Horror films are widely criticized nowadays for using startling sounds for cheap jump scares. These are just a few techniques used objectively by filmmakers to try and get our emotional response. Maybe now you'll see why I despise the deflections that keep coming up with this movie. That art is subjective is an end-all be-all argument by critics whose jobs are based on objective understandings of a specific art form. I mean, why would they have art and film schools if there wasn't something objective to learn? George Lucas said it best.
Art is technology. It's the one thing that you can do. It's using technology to communicate emotions from one human being to another human being.
When you see a man holding 2 tablets and 10 commandments, the intention is to recall Moses, the lawgiver of the Jewish and Christian faiths. The emotion you feel seeing it is separate from the purposeful use of him. In the invention of lying, the same type of figure is used, a man holding 2 tablets, intended to make you think of Moses in the Bible, but your subjective response will probably either be disdain at an atheist parody of the lawgiver, or laughter at the comedic mockery. A good critic will notice this development, regardless of his feelings about it. I hope I've made a convincing argument. Please let me know what you liked and where I could improve. Be sure to subscribe to me and all my Fandom Collective friends. I'm Black Angus. Have a great night. Hey, want to follow me on Twitter? I'm @AngusReviews. Let me know what I should cover next. See you there.